Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Discriminating Gamer, the David Hasselhoff of board game review shows. My name is Cody. Say, that period when the Middle Ages was kind of giving way to the Renaissance, what a weird time. You had wars and political intrigue and all sorts of ecclesiastical adventures. Well, now there's a new game from Academy Games that kind of puts that right on your tabletop. I am, of course, talking about Fief, France, 1429. In Fief, France, 1429, from Academy Games, 3 to 6 players are essentially going to take on the roles of dynastic families in the early 15th century. In the beginning of the game, each player gets to have their own little kind of family dynasty card. It's got room for 4 family members, as well as all the military units and other tokens you're going to need during the game. Now, you get a card right at the beginning of the game that represents a family member, a member of your dynasty. It can be a man, it can be a woman, and you put that on your kind of player card. Now, the game plays out over a series of phases, and the very first phase is the Hear Ye phase. During the Hear Ye phase, and that's just fun to say, you are going to do several things. First of all, you're going to announce any marriages among the players. Essentially, you can marry male family members to female family members and vice versa. You each have one ring token of your color, and you switch that with the person you are having the alliance with, and you place it on that card. So you always know who is married to who. Now, characters in the game that are married, they're pretty much going to be married for the entire game. So you're stuck unless one of the partners in that marriage dies, which is a very real possibility in this intriguing world of Fief. Now also, the Hear Ye phase will be important because it will allow you to elect bishops, elect popes, and elect the king. Now you can't really do that in the first round, maybe the first couple of rounds, but once you start gaining more power and land and what have you, you can be elected to these offices. And each one comes with certain rights, certain privileges, and certain powers. Next, you have the card phase. Now, first of all, you can discard some of your cards, and then you can draw cards. There are 2 different kinds of cards in Fief. First of all, there are Lord's cards, and you draw a Lord card to essentially increase your dynasty, to essentially have more family members in your faction. So you draw that, and most of the time it is going to be either a lord or a lady that you can then add to your faction player card that will allow you to do more things. Now in this phase, you can draw either 2 fortune cards or 1 lord and 1 fortune card, but your hand size can only be 3, so you're going to have to discard any cards to get down to 3 so you can draw those cards if you want. Now, if you draw fortune cards, and the top of the deck is black, or you draw 1 and you're going to draw another and that's black, you have to place the black card on the board next to it, out to 3 cards out. So there's going to be potential for 3 cards, 3 black, disastrous fortune cards that are going to come out, and they're going to have to be resolved as soon as the card phase is over. So, once everybody has drawn cards, you have to resolve the disaster cards, one at a time, 1, 2, 3. There are going to be things like heavy rain, which means you can't move an army through a fief. It's going to be plague, which is going to maybe decimate military units and possibly even your lords. It's going to be famine, which means you're not going to get all the taxes you want. There's all sorts of mean and icky things that can happen with these cards. Usually what's going to happen is you pull this card and then you roll a d6. And there are 5 bishoprics in the game, and so if it lands on 1, 2, 3, or 5, you know which bishopric it affects, and that kind of affects everybody in that bishopric. If you roll a 6, you just discard it, it doesn't come up. Now, some of the fortune cards will be good that you draw. Some of them will allow you to levy taxes in your region to raise more money. Some of them will allow you to cancel some of the negative disaster cards, like, you know, heavy rains and some of the other things. They're really good. They also allow you to play some dirty tricks on your enemies. For instance, you can play an uprising card in any fief where somebody's already played a tax card, or a famine card has come up. You can also have the assassinate card, meaning you can kill another one of the players on the board. Now, if you do that, though, the family member that was responsible for the assassination, whether it's attempted or real, because you have to roll, I think, 1, 2, 3 on a d6, they get a justice token on them, and then later somebody plays a justice card, they can essentially execute whoever was responsible for that assassination. So people go around after you resolve the disasters, and they each play cards. And you can play any number of cards. You place cards in your family, or you play cards for their effect on the board or against other players, and you get all those things resolved, and then we move on to the next phase. The third phase is a collect income phase. Essentially, you're going to add up all of the villages you own, any mills you own, a few other factors, and that's going to give you the amount of coins you get for that turn. So once you've collected all of this money, we go into the fourth phase, which is the purchase phase. Now, if any of your nobles or lords or ladies have been captured, you have to pay the ransom if you can afford it to get that person back. Otherwise, you're going to go ahead and you're going to spend your money on things either to improve your fief, like mills or strongholds and fortifications, or you are going to go ahead and buy military units on the board. Now, if certain conditions have been met within your fief, all of the villages are occupied, not necessarily by you, but by players, you can attempt to buy the fief token. You can essentially become the lord of that particular fief. That's going to grant you a victory point, and it's also going to kind of improve your status, maybe make you a little more attractive to somebody who is looking for a political alliance with you. Now, the fifth phase is your movement phase. You're going to move your military units all around the board. The various villages are connected by roads. You can move lords along the roads with armies. The armies cannot move without lords. They can only travel when they are accompanying a lord, and lords can drop off and pick up new military units as they move. They can move up to 2 spaces. If you want to move through somebody else's fief or somebody else's village, you have to get permission to do that. If they don't grant you permission, there's an option where you can do a cavalcade, where you can essentially fight your way through it in order to get to your final objective, but that can be a pretty hairy proposition itself. Next, you have the battle phase. Now, if any units end up in the same space as other people's units, you can opt to just say, well, we have a truce, we're not going to fight. But otherwise, you're going to have to do battle. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to add up the combat strength of your units. Usually, that's your footmen and your cavalry. There may be a few other factors that go on there. And what you're going to do is you're going to take a number of battle dice, and they have the fief symbol on them in various increments, 1, 2, or 3. Well, depending on the strength points of your units, you see how many dice you get to roll, and then when you roll those dice, however many fief symbols come up, that is the damage you deal to your enemy. Now, cavalry, for instance, take 3 fief points to eliminate, whereas the footmen just take 1. So very often, you're going to be eliminating infantry before you get to the more powerful cavalry. And of course, the person who is taking the losses gets to decide what units he's going to eliminate from the battle. You can also lay siege to enemy strongholds and fortified cities in the hope of conquering those things, and there's specific rules to laying sieges as well. Now, after battle has been resolved, you're going to go ahead and look at victory points. Who has earned victory points? And you earn victory points essentially for your titles. Do you have a fief title? Are you the king? Are you a pope? And there are essentially 2 ways you can win with these victory points. If you're just acting for yourself, you need 3 victory points to win the game. But if you have contracted a marriage alliance with another player, if you have 4 points altogether, then you both win. You have a shared victory in the game. The game itself continues on over round after round until somebody has reached those 3 or 4 victory points. And it doesn't sound like it's a very difficult thing to get to, only 3 or 4 victory points, and yet it can be very, very, very challenging to get those victory points and meet those victory conditions. So I'm not going to draw out the suspense here. I'm going to tell you right now, I love Fief, France 1429. I think this is a fantastic game. It's a fantastic game for a number of reasons. First of all, this is a highly, highly thematic game. It really draws you into the 15th century Western Europe here, and it does it very, very well. The way you're building dynasties and playing out your lord and lady cards, and the idea of the marriage alliance is so cool, because I've seen in these games, I've seen players contract marriage alliances early on because they're looking at where they are on the board and what they think will be the most advantageous to them, and then regretting that decision later because the other person isn't helping them or is being beaten down, and they are really hurting. And so it's really funny, but you're stuck with that marriage alliance unless somebody is killed. Now, also, there's a lot of other little fun things you can do playing the cards. I like the way the fortune cards come up and the negative disaster cards. They add kind of fun, kind of random elements to the game that I really enjoy. I enjoy the battles. I like to roll dice and chuck dice, so I think that's fun. Really get a kick out of that as well from this game. But to me, the reason why I love this game is, in addition to all these things you can do, and of course all the tough choices that come in this game, this is an epic game. This is a game that tells these vast, cool stories where, you know, it's a game of shifting alliances and trying to stay on top, and there's almost a sense of role-playing here, and it's very, very thematic and fun the way you are going about these things. The way you try to get these titles, these ecclesiastical titles, like being Pope and Bishop and Cardinal, that's very cool, even as you're fighting this kind of secular war to be made, you know, fiefs, to be lords of the fief, or to be the king. It's just all very, very fun, and again, highly thematic. The games that Fief France 1429 really remind me of most of all is Twilight Imperium and A Game of Thrones, the board game. Two of my absolute favorite games. It feels like that in that very often you're just not strong enough to win on your own. And so you need those allies, but kind of working with those other players brings its own unique challenges. And so the way that marriage system works in the alliances, once again, is absolutely fascinating. But more than that, even if you're outside of a marriage alliance, you still are going to have to work with other people, you know, to just do the best job you can for your own security, and to hopefully try to find a way to maneuver yourself into getting more titles. But the game just has, like I say, it's very story-driven. And it's a game that just has those great moments. Like I say, you're almost role-playing there. So this game from the footage you're seeing here, Justin had been elected king, and he was eating that up. I mean, he was chewing the scenery, right? He loved being the king here. Well, so what happened is, at one point, he and I had kind of had some contentious relationships, but at one point, we kind of work out a deal. Now, he's got a marriage alliance with Aaron, but I still kind of want his good graces so I can maneuver kind of in my section of the board. And I didn't have any titles yet. I was like the only one on the board without any titles. I was really suffering. I'd gotten some bad cards out of the disaster deck, and so I was really upset. So Justin and I, we sit down, we talk. He says, I will grant you a fief title, which is a power a king can do. So you don't have to buy it, a king can just grant it to you. He says, I'll do that, but I want one of your other guys to become the bishop so that you can support me in electing my candidate for pope. Well, I'm thinking, that's great. He's not only going to give me the fief title, but he's going to help me become a bishop. I was thrilled. So yeah, that works for me. So I got the fief title, but when it came up for me to get the bishop's title, I have to run for bishop. And it just so happened that another alliance, Jeff and Nick, they were not too keen on that. And they were able to vote in such a way that it was a wash, that I couldn't get that bishopric. I was so upset. Well, immediately after my turn, it was Jeff's turn, and Jeff puts up his own candidate for pope. And I was upset about that. I was so mad at him. And then, through my anger, I suddenly realized if he got that popedom, he would have 3 victory points. He was in an alliance. His partner already had a victory point. They would win the game. So I was like, oh, I got to stop him. And I remembered I had an assassin card. So before the election could take place, I played the assassin card on Jeff. It killed his candidate. It was hilarious. He was so mad. He could have won the game right there. But he didn't. And the game went on for a few more hours. But it was just one of those moments that, you know, games that can produce such passion, and those moments that just, you want to stand up and cheer, you want to stand up and hit somebody. Those are the kind of game adventures I love. I live for. That's why I'm a gamer. And this game, Fief France 1429, is filled with these kinds of moments. Now, there are a couple of things that some people may have a problem with this. First of all, it can be a very long game. Now, 2 to 3 hours is kind of average, but it can go longer. Depending on how people are playing, it can be a very long game. So this is a game you want to play when you can sit in for the long haul. Don't count on the 2-hour time here. Count on the 3 or maybe even 4-hour game. Now also too, there is a lot of randomness in this game. As I say, that you're checking dice for battles, but also those disaster cards come up and they really hurt me, in one game, and they can do that. And so there is a lot of randomness here. A lot of people aren't going to respond to that. Personally, I loved it. Von Clausewitz said, "War is the realm of chance," and so are games. I enjoyed both the random elements and the strategic elements, and I think this game marries them together very well. Really enjoyed it. Fief also boasts some expansion packs. There's a Tactics expansion, a Crusades expansion, the Teutonic Knights expansion, Templars expansion, and Politics expansion. Now all these expansions look like they're really going to change the game. We didn't play with any of the expansions yet, just the core game, but I'm hoping in the future to hit some of these expansions and tell you what I think of them as well. So I was really super excited to see what Academy Games came up with on the heels of Freedom the Underground Railroad, which was a game they came out with here about a year or two ago, which was absolutely brilliant, a brilliant cooperative game. I love Freedom the Underground Railroad, and so I was so excited to see how Fief France 1429 played out. I'm pleased to report it is a spectacular game. So this is one, I think, if you're like me, you like these big thematic epic adventures, pick up Fief France 1492. It is amazing. The recommendation for the discriminating gamer is buy it. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment here on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We ask you to please like us on Facebook and subscribe to us on YouTube. We are The Discriminating Gamer. And you know what? I didn't get elected king, so I just have to pretend here.
Again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band. I would like to speak to you today. No, I don't have it.